Welcome to the 2021 Town and Country Amateur Art Show exhibition. My name is Paula McCarty and I'm the exhibitions designer here at Springer Cultural Center. This year marks the 65th anniversary of this exhibition and we hope you enjoy the show. I'd like to introduce this year's juror, Liza Wynett. Liza, to tell you a little bit about her, she received a Master of Arts from Minnesota State University in Mankato. And then she also received a certificate in digital illustration at Parkland. She teaches graphic design at Parkland and also teaches for the Park District ceramic classes. So she has carefully considered the work in this show and awarded Best of Show and Blue Ribbon winners. Those winners are eligible to participate in the fall show and will be competing at the state level against other winners from town and country shows around the state of Illinois. So we're very excited to hear Liza's critique of the work, and I'll turn it over to her. And thank you, Liza, for doing such an outstanding job on the jury.
Oh, thank you. We're going to start with Rachel's piece, which is this beautiful folded paper, three-dimensional work of art. And I really admire the craftsmanship that went into this and the patience it must have took to complete this piece. And I was instantly drawn to this one when I first came into the gallery. And I guess the only suggestion that I might have for Rachel is that in future pieces, I really do enjoy some of the consistency and the little circles of paper, but perhaps they could be vary in size a little bit. But other than that, this is an astounding piece of artwork. Congratulations. And here we have a piece by Marissa, and it's this wonderful forest of fantastical animals. And I just enjoyed how fun and playful this was, and how colorful and imaginative it is. For Marissa, my only suggestion would be to, when you're painting trees, maybe think about adding some more depth to those trees to make some of the trees look like they recede in the background and some that come to the foreground. But other than that, congratulations. It's a quite lovely piece. And here's another piece by Rachel, and once again, quite beautifully done. The attention to detail is astounding. I particularly enjoy how the different pieces of paper mimic the feathers on the duck. And the only suggestion I would have is perhaps kind of consider this negative space up here and what might work up here to give it a little bit more interest, but just like the other one, fantastic job. And the next piece is actually a collection of 4 by Divya. And I really enjoyed the detail and the colors of these pieces. And they work really well together as a grouping of 4. And each one has a little bit of a different narrative, but there's enough cohesiveness to these pieces that they work well as a unit. And here we have a piece of photography by Oscar. And what I was drawn to in this piece is that the light in the window and the empty seats really draws you into this composition. And kind of I asked myself questions like, who is meant to sit here? Who is going to be arriving? And the title is Intimidation. So what is it about this scene that seems intimidating? What are we expecting to happen? My only suggestion for Oscar is that this piece is kind of small, and so if you had the opportunity to enlarge it and put it in a bigger frame, that would allow your viewers to enjoy it probably even more. But good job, a nice piece of photography. And here we have the other 2, and the only suggestion I would have for her is that out of all of these pieces, the texture in the background of this one, the green tends to get a little bit lost with the blue, and so perhaps a lighter green would help that pop out. But other than that, well done. All right, so these 2 pieces are by Sarah, and I thought both of them are lovely, but the top one was awarded a ribbon. And what I particularly liked about this top one is the movement in the clouds. Your eye kind of wants to follow the sky and what's happening, and the little pops of color that give it interest. It would be not as successful if that color wasn't put into the sky, if it was just blue and white, for example. And then the understated foreground leaves a lot to the imagination. It would be interesting to see maybe a little bit more detail in the foreground here, but other than that, successful piece. And here we have a piece of photography by Grace, and I was particularly attracted to kind of the fractal nature of this. It's like a repeating pattern with the frost-covered branches. My only suggestion for Grace is to consider your focal point and what is in focus and what isn't, and perhaps like this large branch that is out of focus in the front. Composing your image, it would be kind of interesting if it was off to one corner or another. But other than that, I really do enjoy the detail and the atmosphere of this piece of photography. And this is a piece of photography by Leah. And I was really drawn to this one because it has a narrative and shows action, and you kind of can feel like the buzzing of the bees in this scene. And it's also well composed. I enjoy how there's this kind of suggested triangle between the tree and the figure and then the hive box down here. My only suggestion for her would be to perhaps consider using a larger frame with a larger mat to give this piece of photography more breathing room, because I think it definitely deserves that. And I chose the top piece by Leo as a ribbon winner. I thought this was an interesting composition where we have the suggestion of the foreground reflected in the water and just the sky and this little pop of warm color here. And the debris in the water and how it flecked the surface, I thought was an interesting texture. It almost appears like it's distressed, and I really enjoyed that quite a bit. My only suggestion for Leo would be, I have to find the little hint of the building here to be somewhat distracting, so you could actually crop this up a little bit and we can enjoy this as texture and landscape. But other than that, great job. And here we have a large piece by Catherine, and I really enjoyed this because of the how colorful the side panels are, but then how this is black and white, and I found it quite striking. My only suggestion for her would be, if you have the opportunity and your instructor lets you, I see that you have like a little bit of a, like your art class and then the date and stuff at the bottom, that could go on the back of the piece. But then I enjoyed the detail and the patterns and the creative composition of this piece. So good job. And here we have a pastel illustration by Anne, and I particularly enjoyed the use of color, especially in the sky and in the buildings, and how all the colors are layered on top of one another to create a sense of depth and atmosphere with this piece. My only suggestion for Anne would be to consider how to include maybe more depth in the vegetation that comes across the middle of this piece. But other than that, well done. And here we have a really nice charcoal by Curtis. And I enjoyed the composition of this piece also. Where in the foreground we have the figure and plenty of negative space that shows the background and the environment that the figure is residing in. My only tip maybe for Curtis is to kind of consider how you approach blending the charcoal in the background, especially in the sky. So think about what smudging and how to add more detail perhaps in this area to even give it more of a sense of environment. But other than that, a great job, and I enjoy the narrative of this piece. Here we have two pieces by Emma, and I enjoy the compositions and the use of negative space on both of these. How the white paper is left to allow breathing room for the branches in both of these illustrations. And I love how expressive these crabs are with just a few watery brush strokes. I find that the signature here on the right really does add to the piece, and it would be interesting to see something maybe similar to on the crab piece, but have it understated. But overall, good job. Thank you. And here we have this really nice abstract acrylic painting by Julia, and I particularly enjoy the motion of this piece where it kind of goes at this diagonal, and especially the negative space. I actually find it quite fun to follow the white into this main grouping of kind of purple swirls. My only suggestion for Julia would be to perhaps consider framing this in just a solid block frame. I think that it would highlight kind of the contemporary feel of this piece. And here we have this lovely pastel by Grace, which was the best of show in the youth category. And I was very impressed with her use of color and layering with the pastels, where it does give portrait a lot of interest and depth, and it's quite astounding. My only suggestion for Grace would be to kind of consider perhaps addressing the clothing a little bit more. But other than that, fantastic work. And here we have a piece by Sharon and this wonderful ink on paper using kind of a stippling technique. And I particularly enjoy how detailed it is and how it has a sense of depth. And even in these negative spaces where the little dots were placed was really well considered. So they kind of have come in at this angle. My only suggestion would be I actually don't have any other I don't have any suggestions for this one. This is quite a lovely piece, and congratulations. And here we have another piece by Grace, this beautiful piece of photography. And I was drawn to this one because of the negative space in the sense of rhythm that is created by these circles. And then this really nice lantern with, it might be difficult to see in the video, but there's some rain coming through that adds additional texture, and it's really subtle, but it's just enough to give this quite a bit of interest. I would like to see this one actually blown up a little bit if you have the opportunity so that we could appreciate it on a larger scale. But other than that, wonderful composition. And here's this wonderful, vibrant piece of work by Anne, and I was particularly attracted to this because of the color palette and the recognizable figures in it that we can, I think that we all appreciate from art history. The only suggestion I would have for Anne would be that some of the pieces feel a little bit out of the flow of the main composition, such as this piece is kind of, it doesn't seem to flow as well as some of these others. But overall, the texture is wonderful and the composition is strong, and it's quite a fun, vibrant piece. And here's a piece of photography by Oscar, and what I particularly enjoyed about this one is the mystery of not knowing exactly what it is. And also the composition is quite strong, so we have this nice negative space, this black background, and this mysterious golden bar, which also kind of imitates or mimics these this repetition of line here. Yeah, and the only thing that I would have to suggest for Oscar is, like some of the other pieces of photography, is just perhaps blow it up a little bit bigger so we can better appreciate the composition. But well done. And here we have this wonderful multimedia piece by Miriam, which won the Best of Show in the Adult category. And I particularly enjoyed both the conceptual idea behind this, the abstraction, and the excellent use of watercolor technique. I feel really drawn into the central figure, and I enjoyed the figures in the background, how they've been abstracted in. For me personally, it almost felt like I was going back in time into art history, which I found to be really exciting with this piece. My only suggestion is to that it feels a slightly top heavy, like there's a little bit maybe too much negative space on the bottom, but that definitely does not detract from this composition. It is very skillfully done, and congratulations. And here we have this wonderful multimedia piece from Anna. And I enjoyed the expert use of line quality and the collage type aspect of this. And it kind of tells a story, although I'm not sure what it is, which just increases the mystery of this piece. The only suggestion I would have for Anna is to kind of consider how you're cropping your image. It kind of feels like this got a little cropped off maybe in in maybe a way that's unintended. But other than that, the whole thing works well as a unit. Even the frame works well with the composition because of the color and size. So, good job. Here we have these really fun, playful acrylics by Ginger, and I really enjoyed the composition of how the squirrel's tail overlaps both of these canvases, and we get the suggestion of movement activity because we don't see the squirrel's head, but we see the head of the dog, which I think is very fun. My only suggestion would be to kind of consider the edge of the canvas. So we almost start to lose the dog's paw here. We could have brought that up a little bit. But other than that, wonderful job and fun, playful piece. And here we have a piece of ceramic art by Eva, and this is our youngest artist in the show, and I really enjoy how interactive these are. It's like little pieces of breakfast food, including a soft-boiled egg. So wonderful job, Eva. And here we have a piece of ceramic art by Carol, and it's this wonderful fish that is highly textured, and it has quite the character. I enjoy his little nose and his lips and his eyes. The only suggestion I would have for Carol is it might be fun to incorporate different textures within the fish, but other than that, it's quite lovely and good job. And here we have a piece of mixed media, primarily ceramics by Sharon. And I just really loved the concept of this one, how it marries a baby with, I guess, a roasted chicken. But even the surface is well treated, and the details within, like the digits, have even been addressed. My only suggestion is I kind of have the feeling like the inside of the cavity, if it was a slightly more dramatic color change, or there's something happening in there, that would be really interesting. But other than that, well done. And here we have an oil painting done by Deb. And what I enjoyed about this one was the textural quality of the paint and the repetition of the jars with the flowers in them. My only suggestion for Deb is to think about the depth of these flowers and how one might be able to paint those. So some look like they're a little bit more receded in the background, some might come forward. But on that, well done. And here we have an oil pastel by Anne, and I really enjoyed the movement in the clouds and the color variation, and it really does draw the eye into the center of this piece. I even particularly like the understated bits of landscape that are in the distance here. My only suggestion for Anne is maybe consider adding a little bit more variety in the texture and in this water. But other than that, well done.
Thank you to everyone who participated. For those who won Best of Show or Blue Ribbons, you can participate in the state show in the fall, and we will be sending entry forms later this summer to you. While you are not required to participate, we sure hope to see you there. Thank you.